So the next big type of assignment is lab. So we will be doing lab on campus every Wednesday in room 124 of the science building, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will do exams during that time as well, but it'll still be on campus 11 a.m. During lab time. We will need personal protective equipment, so goggles. You need to wear, you can get those through the MyBooks program. I also have some if you need to borrow them. You need to wear closed-toed shoes. I don't have extra shoes for you, so you need to wear closed-toed shoes to be in the lab. You need to have clothes from your shoulders covering down to your ankles, so no abdomen exposed and no legs exposed. I do not have extra clothes for you, so you need to come properly dressed to this week's lab on Wednesday. It is cold in the lab room. Probably want to wear a sweatshirt, sweater, jacket, coat, whatever. It is cold in there. You're going to work in assigned lab groups. They will be, I'll make those lab groups on like Monday, maybe Tuesday, and then you'll work, I'll let you know on Wednesday what your lab group is. There will be a folder within each week module for the lab. There's handouts in there that have all the information for the lab activity. All the assignments that are part of the lab will be in there. There are 4 assignments you do that are part of the lab. There's also an attendance grade, but pre-lab questions, technique comprehension, and lab notebook. These 3 you are due by Wednesday at 11 a.m. Sometimes a lab notebook, you'll do it on campus. It'll rotate who needs to do it beforehand. And then there's a post-lab assignment that's due on Sunday. So you'll kind of, every week you'll go through this process, pre-lab question, technique, comprehension, lab notebook, do the lab, then you'll have post-lab will be due on Sunday about the lab. So those weekly assignments are right there. So that makes up 60% of your overall lab grade. So doing the pre-labs, doing the technique comprehension, doing the lab notebook, lab participation / teamwork, and then the post-lab assignments. And then you also will have a lab practical and a technique presentation. Most labs will not require the full 2 hours. Instead, we'll do maybe these labs are all done for like the hour 15 on campus, 16-week courses. So sometimes we'll finish in that amount of time. Sometimes we'll stay in the lab room and do other stuff in the lab that does not have pre-labs associated with it. We'll also usually move to a classroom and work on practice problems. I really like that part, using that in my hybrids. I started doing that, I guess, a few years ago. I've been doing it for a while now. But it's a way to practice, to get kind of into the idea of get more hands-on practice, immediate feedback. I'll be there. The rest of the class will be there. You can work with other people. I really like that opportunity. I think it's a really good educational practice that we can do. Like I said, there will be an audio-visual presentation at the end of the semester. You can either make a video or you can do it live in person. I'll provide all sorts of information as we get closer to that. It'll be due in April. So, I'll start posting information in like March about how to do that. And there'll be a rubric and all that I'll post for that. You also do a lab practical. This will be like the last lab. So this will be like April 30th-ish. And so again, it'll be on campus, individual activity where you will work through activities in the lab room. Nothing crazy. It just meant to kind of see, did you come to lab? Did you participate? Were you engaged? Do you know what we did in the lab? So let's go to Blackboard and see where lab stuff can be found. So again, the lab is going to be run through Blackboard. So we're going to see what that looks like. So you can't see it yet for you but week 2 is the first time we'll see a full lab. So if I open up week 2, you'll see there's this lab, evaporation molecular forces. This kind of description on the folder will give you, it's a description of the lab as well as all the due dates. So when we're doing the lab, the fact that the pre-lab and technique comprehension are due Wednesday at 11. Some people need to get the notebook done by Wednesday, and the post-lab's due Sunday the 18th. It's also opening and closing because I'm clicking on it. And so you can see then it's a folder within the module for the week. I open it up and everything is visible within there. So if I click on the first thing, it's a lab handout. And you'll note, because it's still within that week module, you also have this navigation pane on the left side here. So you can see we have the handout, we have a pre-lab. This is assignment questions for you to answer about the information in the lab handout. There is a link to, this is a link to a YouTube video about measuring evaporation temperature changes, which is what the lab will be. Then there's a quiz, a little assignment about the information in that video. Then here's a link to the electronic lab notebook. We'll talk about that on campus. You'll know there's a group this week. We'll talk about it. And then there is the post-lab assignment. So these are all the kind of parts of the lab. There's always going to be a pre-lab. There's always going to be a technique comprehension. Sometimes there'll be two things for you to do, and the notebook, and then the post lab. The only other thing is after you're done with the post lab, after the post lab is not after you're done, after the post lab is due. So this one's due Sunday, the 25th. After that time, beneath this here, solutions will come up. So you'll be able to see the answers to the post lab, the post lab questions, writing conclusions, that kind of stuff. That will all be in there. So that would be for week 2, which we're not in right now. We're in week 1. So for this week, we do have lab, endothermic versus exothermic. It is Wednesday at 11 a.m. in room 124 of the science building, so you want to be there at 11 a.m. We do have a lab handout. There's nothing for you to do beforehand this time. Because it's the first week, you can look at the lab handout if you want. Basically, the point of this lab is to do a lab and get an example, but it's mostly just to work through this lab notebook that we're going to be working on. You can get a sense of what that looks like, and then we'll do a post-lab afterwards. But there's nothing you need to do beforehand. The big part of on-campus lab this week, as I noted in this little blurb up here, is your clothing. Closed-toed shoes, clothing covering from your abdomen, your legs. So shoulders down to ankles needs to be covered. And yeah, gotta have shoes. So I guess shoulders down to toes. All needs to be fully covered. And I don't have any places. I have extra goggles you can borrow if you don't have your own goggles. That's fine. But I don't have extra clothes or shoes. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. Otherwise, we're coming to the end. There's not that many more videos. There's not much more to the class. But there is still some more. See you in the next video.